Good Shabbos, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Take our seats. Good to see everybody. The opening verse from the Parasha that we didn't chant because we started at chapter 15. Re'eh anochi noten livnehem. Behold, I place before you hayom today a blessing or a curse. Bracha uklala. Which is it going to be? Now, some of you know, while I don't speak Yiddish fluently, far from it, I'm fascinated with Yiddish culture. I'm interested in everything about the Yiddish language, and one fascination in particular is the art of Yiddish cursing. I have a sort of devilish interest in it, a devious interest in the art of the Yiddish curse. One of my favorite books, I hope you've seen or read, is called Born to Kvetch by, I think it's Michael Wax who wrote it, yeah? There's a whole section in that book, from what I remember was years ago, where he talks about how Yiddish curses are constructed. What is it about the Yiddish curse that's so genius? And he says, I wrote it here, it's not just a matter of yelling out bad words. That for us Jews, that would be too easy. That would be too simple. No, for us, the trick in Yiddish is how you string the curse together in the most clever and the most damaging way you possibly can. And the way to do it, he writes, and it's really true if you know Yiddish curses, I'll give some examples, is to start very paradoxically with a blessing. You start by blessing the victim and wishing them well, and then and only then with this kind of sharp twist of a knife, so to speak, you cleverly turn what was a blessing into a curse. Here's some examples. Don't take offense. I'm not saying this to you, they're examples. You should become the manager of a large store, but whatever people ask for, you won't have. And what you do have, people won't request. May you enjoy a delicious feast. Chopped liver with onions, herring, chicken soup with dumplings, braised meat, vegetable stew, latkes, and tea with lemon, and may you choke on every bite. My favorite. I'll give you just one more. I could do this all morning. May you have the juiciest goose, but no appetite. May you have the best wine, but no sense of taste. And may you have the most beautiful wife, but no virility. There is a genius to the Yiddish curse. All right, I got one. But as I thought about it this week in reference to the parasha, which speaks about curses and blessings, in reference to Jewish history, it became abundantly clear to me, and if you think about Jewish history, it really is, why we are the people who are geniuses when it comes to cursing. It's because we know tragically the story of our history, that we are a people who have endured and withstood generations of ourselves being cursed. You could look at the Romans' claim that we were traitors in the Roman Empire. You could look at accusations that Jews caused the Black Plague in the Middle Ages. You could look at the Nazi propaganda that polluted the minds of Europe. You could go with any of the anti-Semitic tropes that still persist to this very day. We've lived as Jews in a world that curses us. And yet, and I think this is really the secret to understanding what our parasha is getting about when it talks about blessing and curse, but more than that, to really understanding who we are as a people. It's that just like the Yiddish language can so cleverly turn a blessing into a curse, the whole secret of our history, the meaning of who we are, and I think the strength of our faith is actually to do the exact opposite. That we're the people who are able to look out into this world with all its curses, there are plenty, and find a way, however creatively, however ingeniously, however resiliently, to turn those curses somehow to transform them into blessing. Re'eh begins with a choice. You can choose Hayom today, blessing or curse. We look at our history. You look at how our people have responded to what this world has put in front of us. The choice we've made is so clear. Look at our history every step of the way, every curse that's been flung at us. You want the curse of Roman persecution and the destruction of the temple? What comes from that? The Mishnah, the Talmud, the beauty of rabbinic literature, the great works of the genius of our sages come from that moment of destruction, that curse. You have the curse of Spanish expulsion. What comes from that? You might know the invention of Kabbalah, the great resurgence of Jewish mysticism and spirituality. That energy and passion for God came from that curse. And some say, even from the Shoah. Even from the Shoah, you can look and find the blessing of the rebirth of the state of Israel, which is the great affirmation of Jewish life, the great affirmation of that spirit that we have, that spirit of refusing, just refusing to stay in that place of being cursed, but transforming what is probably the greatest curse you could ever imagine into the greatest blessing of 2,000 years. I bring it up because we need the reminder sometimes. Guys, we need it. You read our news, you look out at a world that has felt in its way cursed for some time. I'm not just talking about anti-Semitism now, but certainly this looming specter. As I look out at a crowd again wearing masks, and we're thinking about a surge in COVID cases, sadly, that might somehow fall exactly on Rosh Hashanah, at least if you hear the experts, the emotional weight of that, and the trauma. Because however you've been affected by COVID, some of us more so, some of us less so, we are all living in a traumatic time. I heard a great rabbi once say, you've heard of an earthquake? This is a lifequake. This is a lifequake for 2 years. And that feeling that we were turning the corner, and now we know we have to stay strong. We know we have to tap into the energy. It's now coming to the month of Elul. There's a special psalm we read in Elul, Psalm 27. You know how that psalm ends? With the most beautiful words. We'll chant them all through this month. Kavel Adonai chazak v'yametz libecha. Kavel Adonai, hope in the Lord, find strength in your hearts, and hope in God. How do we tap into that energy? I think we need to hold fast to that line if we can, to all the elements in our tradition, in our community, what we know about our history, anything we can to give us some of that strength and some of that hope right now. There's no question. But if there's one thing I know, it's that if you reference Jewish history, it's what we've always done. It's who we've always been. Don't forget, you look back in the Torah, the name that we are given, the name that says who we are, you know it, Yisrael. The ones who have endured, the ones who have struggled, the ones who have been cursed by the world at times, but who have overcome those. That's who we are. That's our name. And if you look back in that story, you'll see that when Jacob wrestles with that angel, at the end he's wounded and he's carrying some pain. You know what he says to the angel at the very end of that story? Now bless me. Now I deserve to be blessed, having lived through that, having struggled through it, having found the strength to prevail. Now I get to be blessed. Even in dark moments, we've always done it. In the darkest moments, we've done it, and these are dark moments in their way. We'll do it. I'll leave you with a story about finding blessing. It's Hugo Gryn, who's a great British rabbi. He tells the story about his time as a young boy in Auschwitz. Okay, dark time. And it was a winter evening in the barrack where he was forced to live, and his father called him over to explain to him how they knew this. It's hard to say, that it was the first night of Hanukkah. A dark time for the festival of lights, a hard time to find blessing in an atmosphere of curse. So he looks at his dad, and he watches in amazement as his father plucks a few threads from the prison uniform that he's wearing. From the whatever clothes they gave him to wear, he plucks these threads to make a wick. And then he lights them using melted butter from this tiny little bit of whatever the day's minuscule food ration was. And with that, in that cursed place, he starts to recite the blessing, the menorah. The young boy, young Hugo, gets very angry. He says, how could you waste our precious tiny little bit of food, the last food that we have, for nothing but to make this makeshift menorah? You can barely even call it a menorah, and a few words mumbled in Hebrew in this horrible place. How could you, Dad? To which the father replies in this true story, my dear son, he says, you and I have lived here. We've seen that it's possible to live for a very long time without any food. But never forget, my boy, a Jew cannot live for even a single day without finding some blessing. It's the month of Elul. We're looking back now on a year and its curses. We're looking forward to a year which may very well bring some new ones and challenges, but we have a choice. Our Torah presented us this morning with it. I place before you curse and I place before you blessing. I know which choice our people have always made. I hope we can make the same one. I hope we can find the strength and the fortitude to make that choice of blessing, however we can. And with the wisdom and wit of a good Yiddish joke, find that strength to turn these curses upside down, to turn pain into healing however we can, to turn bitterness into love however we can, to turn limitation and adversity into, God willing, perhaps new opportunity however we can, and that this coming year, in just a few weeks, Erev Rosh Hashanah, whether you're watching on the stream or whether you're standing right here with us, whatever's going on out there, we'll stand proud, ready to call ourselves yet again the people Yisrael, the ones who struggle, who wrestle, but who find blessing and who prevail. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, let's rise now, and we'll turn to Chatzi Kaddish, page 184, Musaf Amidah, as we